for a roll call, please.
Jacobson, Fanouken,
Here.
Markort,
Here.
Snow, Noriko,
Here.
Baker,
Here.
Favor,
Here.
Ray,
Here.
6 present.
Thank you. I have heard from Alderman Snow. He is returning from Wisconsin, expects to arrive 5:30 or so he'll join us in progress. We have before us this evening proposed updates to Chapter 52, elimination, clarification of certain ordinances, Chapter 52 update. I'll turn to City Attorney Frieders.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a not common occurrence. We went through our ordinances and realized that we have a number of codes or sections in Chapter 52 that are not terribly current. They haven't been updated in a very long time. And based on changes in state law and changes in case law, it is recommended to go through and review these and make a number of deletions to the code. That's the primary thing we're talking about here. There are a couple of other small changes that we're contemplating making, but the city code right now has ordinances that prohibit any indecent act, disturbance of religious worship services, playing on boxcars, loafing on streets, engaging in activities as a druggist, engaging in activities that are obscene, engaging in lewd writing. There's a prohibition on houses of ill fame and gambling houses. There's a prohibition on false fire alarms, and a number of similar provisions that are very common in public safety codes of this nature that were drafted a long time ago. But with the passage of time, for example, the loitering and loafing on streets ordinances, those have been held in many cases to be unconstitutional because they tend to be very vague in what they say or what they prohibit. Our ordinance, for example, just prohibits loafing on any street within the city when ordered to leave by a police officer. And that doesn't really give the public much notice of the behavior that's prescribed. So it's recommended to simply go through and eliminate a number of those sections. With regard to other changes that we're contemplating, we have a number of different noise ordinances that all regulate the same type of behavior. We're proposing to put that in one section. City Code has a provision that prohibits the possession of burglars' tools. Right now, again, that's a code section that is very, very vague and challenging to enforce. So we are proposing to tighten up the language in that and include an intent element in that ordinance. The Kishwaukee River Levy is another code that we're looking at to, again, tighten the language a little bit and give the public better notice of what exactly they can and cannot do with regard to driving on the levee. The prohibition on barbed wire fences has been updated to more broadly reflect, so barbed wire fence is prohibited unless it's allowed under a unified development ordinance, and the code now accurately would reflect that. We have a update on our trespass ordinance that recognizes the police department's use of third-party trespass agreements where a property owner can appoint the police department as their agent to enforce a trespass code on their behalf. We have an update to the ordinance on retail theft, which right now retail theft is prohibited where you engage in an act that is concealing merchandise or taking it beyond the point of last sale. This would also address attempting to remove the theft-proof devices from merchandise within a store, which is a new trend that we have seen of late. And the fireworks ordinance is another significant update. The current city code just prohibits discharge of fireworks. Under state law, it's unlawful to possess, sell, or transfer fireworks, not just to discharge them. So the reason we'd propose to make this update is to allow a lower intensity charge instead of having to go to the state charge for someone that is in possession of fireworks, having the ability to use a local ordinance violation. Again, on the whole, these are intended, the vast majority of these changes are simply deleting ordinances that are outdated and no longer enforceable in their current verbiage. And then a couple updates, as I had indicated. As we've contemplated how to present these, this represents the effort of a number of different officers in the police department that have spent some time looking at Chapter 52. We've looked at whether it makes sense to propose revisions to some of the old ordinances that we're recommending deleting here. And at this point, we don't believe it's necessary. They are chapters or sections that have not been utilized frequently. So we're recommending bringing these back at a future meeting for consideration and action. we did want to bring it to a cow and give you the opportunity to discuss it and provide any preliminary input that you had. Because the vast majority of what we're doing is really eliminating old ordinances that aren't used anymore, we don't have a reason to believe that this is going to cause a lot of public concern, but we're certainly open to any discussion or direction the council may have as to how you'd wish to proceed.
Okay. Thank you, Dean. Discussion, questions from council. Alderman Noriko.
I appreciate the effort to update this ordinance. I do have a request for an editorial change. Section 52.130A4, definitions. Under this, parent is defined, parent means a natural or adoptive parent. If the term natural could be changed to biological, it implies that adoptive parents are unnatural.
Certainly, and that is a code section that we hadn't proposed an update to, but if there are any other sections the council has concerns on, we're happy to go back
Okay,
and make
thank
similar
you.
changes.
I think that just reflects, more current language. Thank you.
Other discussion or questions at this point? Hearing none, I'm sorry. Alderman Markwart.
The loafing on streets, and I understand, I mean, that's, once again, kind of old term of just loafing on the street, but do we have anything in place for people that seem to be hanging out on the streets downtown for any length of time, just all day? Do we have anything that we can enforce with that, or do we not enforce it, or how do we do that?
Candidly, there's not a good answer to that. The U.S. and Illinois Supreme Courts have both recently heard a number of cases on loitering ordinances, and the city of Chicago has been kind of at the forefront of a significant amount of that litigation. Because of the public's right to peaceably assemble and to use public streets, there's not a great deal that can be regulated with regard to loitering. Chicago has had some success with very targeted anti-gang loitering ordinances, and we have explored and looked at those and determined that at this point, that doesn't appear to be a beneficial approach for the city. It doesn't address quality of life concerns or crime concerns that we would have as those might apply here. So at this point, the ordinances we're recommending deleting really aren't utilized frequently, and we don't have a recommendation to bring an update on that point.
I'm just thinking sometimes it's difficult to maneuver through, the main thoroughfare through town at different points of time, on the sidewalks, being able to walk through without sometimes having to step into the street or around people or, that type of thing.
That behavior often relates to businesses that are regulated under a city liquor license or other applicable license, and that gives us a really effective tool for talking with the business owner and working with them to alter the behavior of their patrons. So if that's what you're experiencing, if it's related to specific businesses, I'd be happy to have a follow-up with you after the meeting and see if we can work with those businesses to try and redirect.
Okay.
Other input that council members would like to offer at this point? Hearing none, I'll presume you're satisfied with the draft before us, the direction it's heading. City Attorney Frieders, I understand this will be coming back to us for future action.
Yes, Mayor.
Okay. Very good. We'll move on to public participation. Do we have members registered? Okay. Bessie, and I'd ask you to respect the 3-minute time limit, please.
Take me 3 minutes to get over here.
I don't think so, Bessie.
Thank you for reminding me of that.
Okay, it's fairly obvious from, what the city attorney just said, that some of these ordinances are maybe antiquated, and they need some revising and so on, and maybe even deletion. But to put all of that in one package is, it's maybe a little bit of overreaction. We're presuming, I think, a little bit too much, a little bit too early, and I'm thinking of what happened just recently with the mass gatherings ordinance that was obviously not properly vetted, and, we learned that with a little bit more vetting, we came up with something that was much more, a better resolution, and I think we need to kind of take the same approach here. One of the things that caught my attention was, it says here, however, based upon court decisions over the past several years, and I think you point out, Dean, the anti-loitering ordinances, and you say the city's current ordinance, fashioned after the city's current ordinance, are unconstitutionally vague. I'm not sure I understand what the phrase unconstitutionally vague is. Maybe it should be constitutionally vague. But anyway, there are several of the ordinances, like the levy one, the gambling one, some of the retail theft, the behavior ones. Maybe those should be a little more closely looked at. Like Kate pointed out, one particular item, rather than in one felt swoop, create an ordinance that will delete and eliminate. I think you ought to utilize your citizens' boards and commissions and look at some of these a little bit more closely. I think you'd be making a huge mistake. Vague to the point of being unconstitutional. Well, the ordinance that you're proposing is kind of vague because it's just a blatant, eliminate this and eliminate that. And when you get pointed out that some things might be unconstitutional, well, who determines that? Just one person? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think you're going to be making a huge mistake if the council doesn't give a little bit more concrete direction to get these vetted in a more detailed manner.
Thank you, Bessie.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, seeing no other input at this point, I would ask for a motion to move to executive session for discussion of personnel as provided for in 5 ILCS 120/2C1. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Alderman Fanouken. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Noreko. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carried. We'll use the large conference room.